What's up, guys? How you doing? Welcome to the Horde Bash developer stream. I'm joined by Zach, Darren, and Billy.
Hey guys.
We're here to talk to you guys about Horde Bash. It is going to be a good one. I'm excited. I don't know if you guys saw that trailer, but that has got me pumped. I cannot wait to pre-build my... Yes, yes. That's what I'm talking about, Billy. That's what I like to hear. First off, just to drop some news on you guys, we did announce some Battle Royale news today. We dropped supply drops and duos. We do have an announce blog on that, so go ahead and check that out. We should have that up in... all the languages. We had English up earlier today, but we should have everything there, so go ahead and tell your friends to check that out. But back into Horde Bash, super excited for this. I know, we're coming out of Survive the Storm, sunsetting that event, but really getting into something new and kind of fresh. Maybe some people who have played that block party in the past might see, the reminiscent of that mode, but definitely exciting.
Yeah, so, I mean, the cool part about the Horde Bash is that it is an iteration of our original of a game mode that we played in online test, and so people have been asking us about, like, hey, how do you iterate through some stuff? This is basically iteration 2 of our block party event that now is going to be named Challenge the Horde. I think is going to be its more permanent name. And this version represents a bunch of the feedback that you guys gave us and just some improvements in tech and a lot of Billy not sleeping. And right, true statement.
Lots of people. Lots of people
group
effort, not sleeping. That's true.
Yeah, not just me. For people who perhaps weren't in the original online test and are seeing this for the first time, the basic premise is we're kind of going for like an instant action mode, right? We're kind of pulling out the building phase into a separate thing that you start with a very humble base. We give you some resources. You go in a shared building area. You can see what other people in the area are building, maybe like riff some ideas off there. But you're going to build your base, and then you're going to go into a combat zone with 3 other people.
Right.
And it's going to deploy all 4 of your bases out in one area, and then they all have to be defended from waves that are coming in. So it's kind of an instant action if you want to, I don't want to have to go harvest a ton of resources right now, right?
Right.
You're going to pre-build your base, and then you're going to go in, and then there's no resource harvesting really. You just pop in.
Because you use a skill tree to determine how many resources you bring into this game mode. So we've basically slimmed down the harvesting aspect and instead put it into an advancement tree. And so the amount of resources that you have to build your initial base are based on the skill tree unlocks.
Nice. That's cool. And I think we actually have Zach we have Zach over here. Zach's been building his base, getting prepped to challenge the Horde. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the cool aspects. You can kind of just like you're kind of preparing your team, your squad for this engagement that's going to happen. And like you can kind of say, hey, what strategy are we going for here? How do we want to pre-build this base? How do we want to approach this? And I think that like kind of after that point, like you get into that quick action. I think that's what's kind of going to set people apart from coming from that Survive the Storm longer form engagement to this more quicker short form Challenge the Horde mode. So Darren, if you want to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think one of the things we wanted to experiment with was to give people like a more discrete prep phase so they can build and they can take as much time as you want. And in this social building area, you're actually match made with other people, even if you're not really grouping with them. So you're exposed to everybody's building things and some of the stuff that Billy was already talking about. But then once you have that building done, you just save it, and then you're loaded in the next time you want to do the challenge. You just show up, and then you can basically play on demand. Right now, I think the amount of time that you spend in the waves is pretty decent. I think in the future, not for this build, like we sort of ran out of time, we'll probably make it even slimmer so you can sort of process through Horde waves a bit faster than in this game mode. But this is a good starting place for us, and then we want to get that instant action feeling for this kind of event where like you can go in and just say, hey, I'm going to throw the switch and I want to shoot some guys in the face and go.
Yep. And so as Zach was running around and playing, if you saw, there's like the area encompassed in the blue kind of like outline is the area where you're going to be allowed to build in to start. And as you're filling in the skill tree, in addition to the resources, one of the things that you actually gain is the ability to make your base larger, and you can expand that size over and over. So you start with a little teeny square, and you're like, oh, this is my little shack. And then as you get through the skill tree, you can eventually have like a huge castle that you fill in, and other people who might be building may not be as far along in that skill tree, so they can be jealous of your mighty castle, right?
Of course.
With their little shack. You got to show off. That's at least half of this, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, you
gotta show off those sweet building skills and those optimal fort strats. Like I know if you guys haven't yet, Zach actually dropped a forum post last week that we posted on Reddit as well. You should go ahead and check that out. He has some tips and tricks for Horde Bash going into this week. So I definitely go check that out because my man Zach has been in here. He's been getting into the Horde Bash, challenging the Horde, and if you wanna try and get a little bit ahead of the curve off the bat there, I think it might be helpful. You'll be over here with your own castle.
Yep. But here's the age-old question though: are the tips for form or function? Is he going for combat effectiveness, or are we just trying to have the sweetest looking base on the block?
Style. Is it style?
Yes.
It is definitely combat effectiveness.
Oh.
It's not style points. Look, I'm not a man of style. That's just not my thing. So, but I am a man of combat effectiveness and making sure stuff gets done. Like,
there you go.
That's what we're all about. So.
All right.
So we kind of went through that initial base building phase. So they have their base, and now they're going to be able to hop into that challenge the Horde event. So how long? So
So real quick, I'm going to be running Raider Headhunter. And so this is one of the new characters. For those of you that are looking at some of these things, we are in our public test environment. So in order to do that, I basically cheated myself a few things. This is only for our public and test environment in order to be able to test these things out. But we'll be running with her. She's got some shotgun capabilities that basically she favors the shotgun. I don't know. Can you talk a little bit about why she's awesome?
Well, definitely. So this is a soldier variant that is meant to be a bit closer engager. So she gets she can fight at close range. She has shotgun benefits, and so the sort of normal soldier really works a lot with assault weapons, and this is the one that's more focused around shotgun things. So that means closer engagement times, and she's going to, in theory, be able to stay alive in while she's that close.
I'm in there. I'm in there. I'm definitely gonna be open up. So, and you can get these heroes through those new llamas, correct?
Yeah, the combination of, as always, we're going to have llama dedicated to the event, and that's the normal way. And also, of course, there's a ton of quests in this event that players can do to earn fixed rewards just by playing through the content. So, if you go play it, you can earn it and get choices on the stuff that you guys are looking to get a hold of.
Right, for sure.
And then the Horde pin is how you get into the mode, and so that's in the map with this awesome three-headed skull thing.
That's right.
That the artist came up with. One of the things that you'll see here is I've unlocked all the different zones, but these unlock sequentially. So you start here at power level 5, and you have to complete the challenges, correct, Billy, in order to get all the way all the way through each one. And as you can see here, I've unlocked all the way through. I didn't actually play all these challenges though, so I played through a few of them, but not all of them.
I heard you were a little busy lately.
Been super busy.
Yeah.
So yeah. But what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and make sure we go to something hopefully a little more fun to watch. Power level 40 seem like a okay place to start, Billy.
Well, we'll see.
Okay.
So
give it a try.
Let's see the combat effectiveness of his tips and tricks, right?
That's true.
Exactly.
Do you want to go? I realize you started, but do you want to look? Is the skill tree before or after the mission?
Well, we can load in the lobby and look at the skill tree real quick while we're waiting to load in here. So
sounds good. All right, here we go.
And so.
Its own custom little thing down there at the bottom.
Yeah. By the way, guys, this is the reason we call this early access. For those of you that are looking at this, you're like, what the heck? Yeah. What we did is we added another skill tree in here. The way we did that is by shrinking the other tiles and just plopping one in. But what you will see here is look at this beautiful art.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this thing looks hot.
Nice. That is nice.
Like there's greens and purples, and it is fantastic. And so on top, like icons have like colors in them now. In fact, we go back to the other. I noticed that we also did that in the rest of the skill tree as well. I was actually super excited when I saw that.
Yeah,
we're evolving. Come on.
So
just at a glance, being able to kind of see what I'm going to get out of the thing is definitely more helpful, because I know it can be kind of daunting. You come in on a skill tree and you're like, all right, where do I go from here? Where am I going to start?
We're super truthful when we told people we're in middle of working on this thing, and we're like, hey, it's not as good a thing, but every
you'll see, and that's why we always encourage getting out there and talking to us, even in stream today. Make sure you have any questions or things. I'll be running in chat, and the closer and closer we get to the end of this, and getting some of your questions out of there. But if you're curious about things or have areas that you think you can improve, use that. We have that in-game feedback tool. Let us know, because we do make those improvements, because we see things we run those UX tests and see that things aren't working for people, or things aren't reading clearly that
Yep.
we can go in adjust those things if need be.
And then the other, I guess I was gonna say the other tip here too is, in generally the way it's split up are the things above, like the split on the top, are more resources and advancements to the building phase. We're like, hey,
Nice.
I'm going to get more things to build, pre-build, because that's where I care about. The stuff at the bottom is more when I'm in the
that's
combat
awesome.
zone,
Nice.
I want to favor that instead. So you can kind of pick which one you care more about as you're working through the skill tree.
Man, that is actually a good tip and trick. So right there, because
Pro.
I wasn't even
Pro.
I was not paying complete attention when I did mine the first time through. So okay, we're gonna go ahead and launch in because we're down to 2 seconds.
So, so coming into Challenge the Horde, we had the Horde Bash event. We had Survive the Storm before, and we kind of teased some of the Halloween stuff coming in the future. But, we kind of have these events. If you want to talk, I know we've touched on this before, touching on, why we do these events, and we kind of have these short runs, and we cycle through these events. But we talked about the iterative phase, but the planning, design, and that process in general, if you want to speak somewhat to that.
I'm going to start the mode here.
Oh, no, you're good, yes.
We're playing. We're going.
Yes, okay,
so-
we can go in. That's
Great,
fine.
Great. Just
we
make
can touch
sure.
on some of that later, yeah.
Challenge. Well, I just want to make. No. I'm just making sure everybody knows.
We're
gonna-
engaged, guys.
Yeah,
we're
we're going.
engaged. We're
There we
going.
go.
Engage.
So-
Activation.
all right.
But yeah, no, like with
Go ahead, Billy.
with these more with the more fast-paced engagement, clearly kind of a different goal than this one. And going forward, our events will have some ideas behind what direction we want to go. So with Horde Bash specifically, when we came in, it was like, all right, Survive the Storm, we want to have a fast-paced event, or is it more so like, we have these block party building blocks, so to speak, and we want to go from there, make the iterations, and give out this mode as an option to see if people respond to it and how it performs.
Is that a question?
Yes, I'm sorry.
okay, yeah.
I was at a
think it's
question. I was at a question.
No, it's good. No, I got it. I think I
Zach
got
hit
you.
me with the mix-up, man.
Yeah, no, he did. He was like, "Hey, I'm going," because Zach loves to play the game. The internet, in case you didn't know, Zach really loves to play Fortnite. I don't know if everybody's aware of just how much he loves this game. So, I mean, we start with the general precept on all of our game modes
Right.
and all of our events, and they usually they start as an experiment or an idea that somebody in the game team has. And
Right.
hey, I'd like to try this. And so usually our prototypes, when we go through this, start out as that kind of idea, and then we figure out like, oh, okay, this has some merit. Let's put more time into it. And so Challenge the Horde is an iterative example of that. Just as Survive the Storm. Survive the Storm was like we ran a big survey,
Right.
and a bunch of people said, hey, make me a hardcore survival mode. And so we were like, okay, great. Like that sounds like a great idea. There's some people on the team that are like, okay, cool. We think we know how we can do that. And then we made that mode together as the first generation of that thing. And then this is just an example of this that I think Billy can talk more about the sort of early days of it. But yeah.
Yeah, this was a prototype from one of the early OT tests, and like part of the iteration through this too is not as noticeable as a player, right? Because part of
Right.
it is like, hey, the first version, some of that content was just like one of our programmers going like, hey, let's throw
Let's
this
do
in
the
there, right?
thing,
Like
yeah.
not even like remotely balanced. We didn't have it synced up with the design department yet, right? Like so we knew there were issues there. So like part of the iteration is the design staff this time going like, what did you do, right? And like clearing that up, trying to make it better. For me too, like coming out of the engineering department, a lot of the thing that we look for in these events also is the stuff that people respond to and what kind of things they like help guide what kind of tech we have to put into the future events, right? Like,
Right.
as an example, this one too, like one thing the design staff wanted to try was making something that was more focused on group content, right?
Right.
So this is actually one of the first modes where this is balanced, expecting that everyone comes in here and they have a defender of their own, and now you can actually have a defender in this mode even though you're at the full party.
Nice.
Everyone can still have a defender. So you can
Awesome.
actually have like 8 active people when you have 4 normal people and 4 defenders. And so like that was new tech that got worked on. We continue to do as we're like going through events and we get through the process of like, oh, it's time to turn this event off. Uh-oh, like this part's broken, and like shutting it off is way harder than we thought, right? Like so as a good example, we didn't necessarily want to do maybe like some small amount of downtime we had to do yesterday, right?
Right.
But that's part of the growing pains of like, well, okay, we're not as
Starting
well
to learn
prepared.
how we can do those things a little bit better to make
Yep.
sure we get you guys the thing you want to do in the easiest way possible.
Yep.
But no, and I think another thing about the events, and we'd kind of touched on this in the dev updates, is these events cycling and give you those opportunities to earn some of those evolution materials. A lot of folks have been looking for because you guys roll in a lot of quests, and there's a lot of aspects, like different levels of aspects to these events when they come in.
Yeah, because over time, like as we introduce new cards, then obviously you need more XP and evolution materials
Right.
to kind of continue to do that. And as per sort of our theme up to this point is like we want the events to carry some of the load, so you'll be able to have opportunities to get evolution ingredients. In fact, I just came out of a meeting for Halloween and talking about how we're going to ensure that faucet exists in the Halloween content. So that's our sort of overall commitment of making sure that players are able to get the stuff that they need in order to be also effective and also to evolve their heroes and make themselves stronger.
Right. And
So.
Yep,
Real quick, can I just narrate something that's
Oh,
going
please,
on in
no,
this?
by
So
all
now we're
means.
switching bases from one of the starting bases. Whose base is this, Zach? Let's see. It's Hayes'.
Hayes',
Okay,
I
Hayes'
think,
base.
yeah.
So what happens is that the waves shift focus to the different players. So each of the bases are tested in sort of pseudo sequential order, and so now since they just defended wave 1 against one aspect of the base, they're now moving to one of the other players' thing. One of the things Zach has told me, and I generally think this is actually true, is that some of the start times between these waves can be pretty aggressive. So finding ways to quickly move from base to base is actually going to be, I think, a pro strategy. So you're going to see some of those guys with jump pads and other things else.
Optimal movement. You heard it here first,
Yeah,
folks.
I think
Optimal
that helps you because then you have more time to prep at the new area.
Definitely, and I think it's the sort of thing where it's like now it's like, all right, guys, do we need to change how we defended versus like what we did the first time? Maybe
Yep.
didn't work against that first
Yep.
wave, and maybe we need to pivot on this base and add in some new stuff. Well, I think it's really cool because you're talking about that shorter form engagement. Speaking, kind of taking a step back a little bit to Survive the Storm, a lot of folks had, they had like feedback on that longer engagement. We had said it was a call out to folks who really did enjoy that Fortnite experience.
Yeah, there's our hardcore was like, yeah, we want you to offer that. That's why we're like, we'd put the 3 days in there, and then they're like, no, people are like, you need to have 14.
need
And
more
we're like,
days.
all right, we put more days in there to let people opt into that experience.
No,
so.
for sure. And I think with so for example with Horde Bash, since it is more action packed, is this a thing where when you get up in those higher power levels, it really starts getting trying, where you really gotta be certain of everybody in your squad, make sure you guys are all on the same page, make sure those forts are prepped.
Yeah, I mean, well, I'll let Billy talk a little bit about that.
Talk some of the difficulty scale.
Yeah, I was going to say yes in general, because this is one of the first things being balanced as like group kind of centric content.
Got it.
It is actually a step up probably in difficulty from what people may necessarily be expecting. That's also goes into a little bit of the feedback we got in the last one too. People were like, well, I wish you had turned it up a little bit.
Right.
So we'll be curious for feedback if maybe we turned it a little too much.
Let us know. Let's see if we turned it out too far.
But we'll see where it goes. I think the thing that I always enjoyed, even from the prototype and is preserved in this version as well, is this one will kind of throw variants on the encounters that the normal mode doesn't necessarily stress you at, right? Like, so you absolutely could be playing here and end up with a wave with like, oh, well, now there's 5 smashers running through my base all at once, right? And how do we deal with that? Like, do you try to get them, like, do you just let them wreck part of the base? Like,
Right. Is it like a pragmatism thing? It's like, it's fine. They're going to break that part. We'll just let them break that part and we'll get them back for it later.
Yeah, there's actually a great video. We actually should see if we could find out. Like QA was telling me when they were testing it, right? They're like, I don't know. I think we ended up with too many smashers. And it's just like one of the testers. He's trying to guard one wall and he like just turns around and the other one just blows up in his face and he gets clubbed like right in the mouth and just instantly dies. I was like, well.
Yeah, it's just one of those the hazardous environment.
That was a pro shot there.
Oh, yeah.
Zach. You shot the flinged
In the air.
creature out of the air.
It was fine.
Well done.
Fine. Thanks.
And then you also see while he's playing too at the start of some of these waves, right? You have the chance that it applies some modifiers similar to the ones that we saw in the Storm event.
Nice.
They come back, and so I think in the very first iteration when we had modifiers, once they were on for good, and you had to deal with it, which could be a little overbearing depending on the ones you got. So on some of these, they may only last for a few waves and fall off. Like new ones may come on. So you gotta watch when it comes up, like what you're dealing with. But they definitely can change how you have to play, right?
So it also is more of that dynamic experience as well, because you got to make sure that, hey, whatever we did wave 1 might not work wave 7, so we can't just try and keep the consistent thing. So make sure you're taking notes while you're running down these waves.
Yeah, they have some properties that you're going to have to tangle with. Actually, it's one thing we didn't talk about at the beginning was that in this particular game mode, you'll see when you fire it up for the first time, one of the property modifiers says like, hey, you can't harvest. You get no resources from harvesting in this mode.
Wow,
so it's just cold. Like it is absolutely like one of the modifier properties of the level type. And so that means you have to utilize the resources you've got from your skill tree or some of your abilities, and
Right.
that's it. And so it really is about, like, this game mode is not about harvesting and fighting at the same time. It's about, like, the horde, managing the stuff you've got and fighting that horde. So again, like I said, we're experimenting with what that feels like in this type of game mode. So we'll see what the feedback is, and then and go from there.
Right. I think I think the one thing that's really cool about that is this is something that I always key into, is when I do see things where I can go into the skill tree and kind of curate how how I like to play. It's the thing where if, like, I'm on the team and I'm like, all right guys, I'm like, I don't know if I can, like, if I'm gonna be, like, out here with, like, I got a good, like, you got a much better gun than me, you're definitely be on the more combat efficiency side, and I
Right.
might be going for more of, like, the building side of things. It's cool being able to know that I, like, have this role and I'm doing this sort of thing in this engagement as a part of this squad, and, like, we can each have our sort of role in there, and we're not all just doing the same thing, but we all might just have different tasks to do in this
Yep.
based on the dynamic of that event.
Yeah.
Or that specific wave.
Yeah, even like playtesting at our desk with, like, the team that was working on this, I think we saw a lot of that, and some of it's funny too, because like we were joking, as you run to somebody's base who, like, is being attacked for the first time, and you're like, you did what? Like, like why did you build your base this way? And then it's like, okay, somebody who's more like building centric is like, okay, quick, we're gonna repair this part.
yeah.
We're gonna fix this part. You go over there, you cover this corner, it'll be fine. It's like,
What is this, Billy? Is this what I think it is? Which is just like,
Oh my.
you getting bombarded?
Yeah, you're in a
yeah,
propane tank.
it's pretty
wave.
awesome. I can say that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! All right.
And your metal walls are being corroded as people are touching them.
Yeah.
As
Oh,
the husks are
that's
touching
even
them.
more.
You-
That's even
yeah.
more fun.
Yeah, you rolled the corrosive.
Oh,
property.
the true hero eating the
Yep.
the propane tank. The true hero.
Yeah. Yep.
Someone's got to take
No.
it for the team.
Yeah, I was gonna say. All right, let's get.
So, with the Horde Bash, with Challenge the Horde and the Horde Bash event, we also have we have the new llamas, the scavenger llamas.
Mm-hmm.
So you get those by collecting the storm tickets, which
Yep.
you receive from completing these quests, right?
Yep.
Um,
The tickets are earned by playing the mode, and as you progress through, you get more tickets, and then you can cash them out on the llamas.
Yep.
And so inside those llamas, we have some new goodies for you guys. So Billy or Darren, if either of you want to talk to what we have featured in those llamas. So we have those 4 new heroes, I believe.
go ahead.
Like we
Yeah.
saw one of them
Roll out.
earlier.
Roll
Well,
out.
and we have weapons too.
Yeah,
I don't.
We have a huge stack of weapons.
Yes.
You don't know how many yours already.
Well, so I've been
There's so many.
admiring the art, but I've not actually had time to go look at their design properties.
Oh,
So
yeah, of
You
course.
may, you may want to talk more about that part.
So the major thing that you get out of this, as you can see, we have a theme this month, which is this sort of scavenger theme. Despite the fact that this is the type of game mode, the actual art style is about a little bit of that Mad Max, a little bit of the post future version of these guys, which is why she's got the face paint on and whatnot. But the weapons themselves have properties on them that make them relatively cheap to craft, which means in a gameplay mode when you're like trying to maintain the amount of stuff you have, having cheap weapons is good. The only downside is they're a little weaker in terms of their durability.
Right.
So they're cheaper to cast, but they're
A little more
basically fragile,
Yeah.
more fragile.
Yeah.
They're not any less effective. They're just more fragile.
Right.
And so you have to sort of decide what your thing is. So if you're really good at maintaining that, you can kind of like milk some of those some of those specific weapons. And of course we have like all the really awesome looking hero types that belong with those sets as well.
Yeah, but I think we actually we had a screenshot of the heroes. I think it was in one of the blocks. Can we pull that up real quick?
Yeah, you can take a look.
Yeah, and
I
so
like that.
we had the one that we saw earlier,
I
but
love
yeah,
that
no,
one.
this is I know you could totally see what you were talking about with like that like we're in the wastelands, like
Yep.
just collecting together.
Yep, it's definitely, it was like, now that we've sort of established, I think we talk a bit about having worked on the IP for so long, we sort of established what the core of Fortnite was supposed to feel like, and you see that in a lot of the core art that we have. But then the artists, though, have been coming up with these crazy ideas
Yeah.
of more things to be like, okay, well, what happens if we did a post-apocalyptic
Right.
thing. So now that we've sort of launched and we've done that, we get to come out with all these variants of the core characters and sort of show off. And so this is something that has been near and dear to some of the artists' heart about wanting to do sort of this a bit like more post-apocalyptic version, because the world of Fortnite in sort of its core is like the disappearance hasn't actually happened that long ago from
Right.
from where you sort of follow the story of Ramirez. But we were like, but the awesome ideas of having like these actual post-apocalyptic looking dudes was too great to pass up. So this is the version of that.
Are these the resistant husks? Is that what these are?
Yeah,
Is
they're
that the reason they're silver?
yeah they look
Oh,
like they're
man.
made of metal now.
Oh
Yeah.
man, those things are awesome. It's like little Terminator.
Yeah.
It's like
Go.
Speaking of the R team continuing to make crazy
I know.
stuff,
Oh
right?
yeah,
I
just
know. They're-
casually covering him in metal.
Yeah, that's fine. Like, right? It was like,
That's-
hey, we need to show this property off, and boom, it was
Yep.
the T2 property look.
Oh, and that's the thing. It's like so important. Those little things become very important because it's something where I'm able to, at a glance, at some level, understand that this thing either takes less damage. I have to do a certain type of damage to it to like kill it, or something like that. Like I'm able to understand that. I think that's very important, especially with a game mode like this.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that actually going back to either events or the feedback pipeline or people people that played on day one of launch back in July, they were like, well, I wish there were more variants in the system, and Billy has been tirelessly working on trying to add more variants. We always intended to have more monster properties, more stuff, and then obviously, we've got a very awesome art team, and they're like, okay, well, how do I visualize all that stuff? So in a lot of ways, they're just getting to the point where we can sort of catch back up to all
Right.
the cool gameplay stuff that we wanted to do, and that creates more variants, and that responds to the feedback that people were saying, like, oh, I wish there were more monster types, and we're going to keep adding more monster types, but we also wanted to add more variants and actually see them, because in some ways, some of these properties existed in the game, but we weren't actually showing them off particularly well. So now we're getting to the point where we can show some of that stuff off.
Right, which
So-
is probably the first version of this, I think, suffered from some degree of that, right? Like, we were just like, well, there's 4 or 5 of these properties going off at once, and I hope you know that, because they're there, but like, have fun. So that should be a little more clear. It's funny, I was just thinking about the art team, like they keep making cool stuff, and we saw that the pin on the hex map, right, with the Horde with the 3 things.
Yeah.
And Todd, who was working on this too, he and I had been like, yeah, we got the coolest hex pin in town, right? Like ours is amazing. And then we saw the pending one for Halloween, and we're like, oh, they one upped us already. Like the Halloween is
Again,
already
Oh,
better.
there you go. You guys got something else to look forward to. The one up another pin.
Yeah,
Yep.
again, we have a really great team. So I mean, like every month we get to add more stuff to the game and or tighten up the gameplay of the stuff that we have. So it's been pretty awesome. Okay, I want to say a pro tip, because one of the people,
Please. Oh, yes.
one of the things, and it's not a new tip for you guys. I just want to make sure I tell them, because
For all you newbies out there,
for yeah,
listen
some of
up.
the new guys and gals out there. I was just laughing because one of our designers was telling a friend, like one of their best friends was playing the game, and they're like, "Oh, my best friend inadvertently recycled something." And although we've talked about like, hey, maybe one day we will be able to actually get the time to make a buyback system, but in lieu of the buyback system where you can inadvertently do stuff, don't forget that if you favorite the stuff that you have, it won't let you recycle it. So if you have something really cool, it's worth putting a little favorite on it.
Favorite your favorites.
It'll save you some heartache later on from inadvertently mulching something up that you didn't intend to.
And if you mulch it, then it wasn't actually a favorite because you didn't favorite it.
Yeah, I'm not saying 100% that's always the case. But
Well, make sure you favorite.
I'm not sure that. Okay.
Make sure you favorite that's the key takeaway
Utilize
here.
those favorite things. People wonder, it sorts them to the top. You can see them a little more clearly, but also it'll prevent you from inadvertently recycling something that you truly love.
The one of the other things I think with coming into Horde Bash, you'd kind of spoke to how when we launched Fortnite in July, we wanted to kind of have an event rolling out with it, and it's kind of Fortnite's this game that functions really well with these events when they're rolling in and out.
Yep.
And we kind of had the Light Founders event when we rolled out, and then we rolled into Survive the Storm, and now we're into that challenge. We're into Challenge the Horde.
Yep.
And,
Oh, man.
Oh boy, he just charged through.
Yeah, just destroyed that entire thing.
But yeah, we so like now that we have these events coming in more consistently, we can start to see some of those systems kick in where it's like I want this evolution material, I can come do
Yep.
these quests.
Yep. Yeah, it was like, I know we talked about it. I mean, the initial thing is, and I think I probably talk about it every stream because trust me, no one wants it as much as I. Is that the founders, we just got so overwhelmed with launching the first portion of early access. We didn't like the first event wasn't as robust as we wanted it to be with the founders. Although it had a lot of cool stuff in it, the stuff on the pins. Now that you guys have seen the way we're rolling some of these events, you can see like this was more our intent, and we're going to continue to do that. So that's so people can get the good drops and the stuff that they're looking to get a hold of. Within the time frames. And the other thing I want to talk about, actually, some people were tweeting at me asking how long stuff lands. We're going to probably experiment with a bunch of stuff of like how long an event lasts. Right. I suspect they'll probably range anywhere between 3 and 6 weeks at given intervals, and we're going to be experimenting with everything from some of it's by design, some of it's by calendars. Like we can only run stuff so far because it's like before Halloween is over, so there's fixed points in our thing. So but that's generally the range for the people that were asking, like, hey, and I actually think I answered somebody was tweeting at me earlier today. It's like, oh, is this stuff going to come back? It's absolutely going to come back. I don't always know the interval because we haven't made a plan into like all of like next year. But yeah, we will bring the stuff back and we'll iterate on it, and that's what we were sort of focusing on last week. And so I bet you the next time we bring this back, it'll be even more awesome.
Yeah, and I mean that's something we talk about like with that feedback is that we can take that into account and understand the areas that maybe we need to improve. Like, oh, the cadence on this wasn't as long as we wanted it to, or it feels like it would have been more complete if we had a little more time on that event itself.
Yeah, I mean it's the same thing. Everything that we're working on, here at Epic is an evolutionary step every week. We're trying to make all our games better and patches as often as we can, which is reasonable. Not to overwhelm everybody with giant patches, but so that games can continue to grow and become better every time you play them. And so this is just another manifestation of that on Fortnite.
So I'm going to use the 4 new heroes as a segue.
Okay.
We actually had some community questions. We on the last dev update. Zach's still churning through the Horde bash. So definitely, if you guys are watching this, he's pulling off some clutch shots here. He had been pulling off some clutch shots. So until I just said that,
tank.
He's pulling off some clutch shots.
Man.
So.
What's going to happen in a double tank? I know
that's-
you
Yeah,
want to say, but I want to know what the double tank scenario is. Billy. I think I
literally,
know.
I
but-
can't shoot them any like.
No,
dude,
you should be able to. I think
should be able to.
What's going to happen? What's going to happen is I'm going to go back to
my.
my desk and open a bug report.
All right. So that's okay. That's good. That's good to know.
I mean, that is part of the iterative stuff too, right? Like there are going to be some rough edges here for sure.
Yep.
Like we
We
definitely have.
We want to get this kind of stuff out to you guys
Yeah.
and let's see where we can improve this. If we're like, all right, this feels good. This game like we've bored our eyes into this and like we have looked at this for a while.
Right.
And it's the kind of thing where like getting the fresh eyes of the community and really seeing how you guys can take what we've created and really do something awesome with it is we love seeing that every time. Like with Survive the Storm, seeing the ingenuity of the community. That was.
Yeah.
It was insane.
Well, and I think it's a good chance to either reaffirm some things that we're thinking like where we want to go in the future, or like, oh no, we're way off. Like, community actually doesn't like this, or they really love this part that we underestimated.
Helps us keep a pulse. Yep.
Yeah, and so like even on this, right? This is a iteration from what we had. There are plenty of things that we would have liked to have gotten in that we haven't gotten there yet, and we will see like if the same kind of thing, if we get feedback along the line where what we were thinking or not, and go from there.
Seems like they're a little tough. Is that right? Is that where we're going? Yeah. I'm enjoying this, though. How are you going to adapt? That's what I want to know.
Adapt.
I'm going to shoot them in the face.
Adapt and survive. Shoot them in the face.
Shoot them in the face. That's our.
All right. That's our strategy.
Objective.
So
you're going to say about feedback.
So to re-segue.
Yeah.
Zach continues to challenge the Horde, is challenging the Horde. I wanted to run through some community questions that had popped up from last week. This is a little more specific. The first one we got is about hero balance. Mm-hmm. So that's from Reddit user F. I'm just going to read the letters out because this is a lot of consonants.
Okay.
So FRVWFR2. And he or she asks, why was Shuriken Master nerfed given the core issues? Was she too problematic, too strong, used too much? And then he kind of asks about, like, we talked about, like, the scaling stuff we have to fix, like, some of the core aspects of the system we want to look at, and, where we're looking at on that timeline-wise.
Yeah, so, well, one of the weird parts was, like, hey, how come? I think I looked at the thread and I was like, it's very specifically is like, hey, how come some of the stuff wasn't caught? Well, it was interesting because there was a compounding bug in the Shuriken Master where it was allowing the shurikens to hit multiple times for a single target.
Oh, I see.
And so what was happening is that like it's delivering 1, 2, 3, 4 hits per pass through on some of these big creatures. So it was actually hiding the fact that some of the there was a scaling problem within some of the abilities. So at first it was like, oh, it feels correct because it's doing all this damage, and it was like, okay, so we thought it was okay, but it turns out the reason that was true was because of the bug. So when we fixed the bug, like many things in it, we then discovered I'm like, hey, some of these abilities aren't scaling at the rate that we wanted to.
Right.
So that's actually what happened there. So we repaired the bug, which was the right thing to do because it was not the design intent that a single star could hit Smasher like 6 times in a row.
Right.
But as a result, when we started looking at that, we realized that the core ability scaling damage was lower than what we thought. And I actually was just having a conversation this afternoon with some of our designers talking about they think they have another pass. I'm not 100% sure when it's going to drop, but that's on the list, and they definitely have figured out a couple of the core problems with some of our ability scaling. So you'll see that come back up, and then we'll figure out, once that goes out to everybody and seeing how scaling works again, then we'll be able to tweak some of the individual abilities again.
Nice.
And so that just will basically make everybody with those ability-based cards stronger, is my guess, is what it's gonna feel like.
Right.
And then we're gonna find out if we have individual outliers that are not strong enough or they aren't fulfilling the design intent. So that's my answer around that one for that. And it's a good question too. Like, how does that happen? So.
And I think if you guys did not catch the dev update, I do want to call Darren had a great metaphor. I'm a big fan of quality metaphors, ladies and gentlemen. if you supply me with good metaphors, I will
You
praise.
must love hanging out with Cameron then.
Oh, that is a whole nother story.
Okay, yeah.
Darren kind of talked about the scaling issue and with how it affects a lot of the hero abilities. With it being a tree trunk, we got to make sure that tree trunk is where we want it to be, because it does touch all those other branches, and those branches are those abilities, like the hero abilities. So skill tree metaphor, it all works together.
We're getting poetic up in here.
Oh, no, it's good. No, it's good. No,
Yeah.
Darren dropped that. And I was just like, Darren, that's great. That's perfect. We gotta use that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's. I mean, and that's the sort of thing. Is like it'll happen. You see how the hero's performing, and you may not know, is that performing by design? Is that something we intend? Is that how this should work? And like that iterative process over time of understanding the different ways the Shuriken Master interacts with the stuff, and then noticing like, oh, that definitely doesn't look right.
Yeah.
So that's good. All right, and continue moving on that forward.
Yeah.
So next question here we got from user Blue Ruckus. So Tank Penny was my first epic character as a new player. I wanted to like her a lot. However, playing melee feels like a huge disadvantage because of a little bit of a lack of survivability. Why bother dying over as melee when I can pick up a rifle and be successful? A little bit of a polarizing,
it's fine,
question,
though.
but yeah.
Well, hey, gamers, we are as gamers.
We are blunt human
we are
beings.
filled with opinion.
Yeah,
so
opinion.
that's okay.
Yep.
And actually, it's a good question. One of the interesting things that Fortnite early on made a decision about, whether or not we see where we'll evolve in another year about what that is, was we wanted everybody to feel like they could participate in the core functions of the gameplay. And so what that means is that everybody can build, everybody can shoot, everybody can use melee, and we really wanted a high degree of player choice.
Right.
Now, the trade-off of that choice, of course, means that it's, in certain cases, depending on your play style or your skill, even you can mitigate some of the balancing, some of the core balance in the game, or worst case, that you end up feeling like the game is super samey because everything plays the same.
Right.
So we try in a lot of ways to use a lot of carrots to enable people to sort of specialize into things rather than detractions. Like a lot of games, like, since we're on a dev stream, I guess I can talk a little bit more in depth, right? Some games just straight out say you can't, if we're talking about an old Dungeons & Dragons game, it's like, oh, well, wizards can't wear armor, and they only use staffs, and like a lot of RPGs utilize those kind of those kind of metaphors for gameplay, and it's cool and it works out and it creates some level of balance. But it also restricts the kind of games that they have. And over years, like you'll see RPGs like, oh well, we'll let you pick however you want to go.
Right.
And so one of the things about Tank Penny or about anything else is like we had this spec originally, some players in the company that were utilizing like double jumping, Uzi wielding ninjas, and we're like, you know what? That's totally okay. That if players want to utilize that, like there's a bunch of specs that allow them to be melee specialists, but we also want to give the people the ability to utilize range damage. So some of Tank Penny's abilities do try to give her some level of survivability, but also the flip side is we don't remove the ability for her to utilize those guns.
Right.
However, one of the weird parts about, again, that choice is that when you get, how much do we allow to give her survivability against the fact that she can still run around with the guns? And if we just simply crank her survivability, then Tank Penny running around with a shotgun it's even more survivable. So we have to create specs that sort of like have synergy with the melee combat system. And I think one of the stuff you're going to see in this build, not around Tank Penny, but around the ninja, which is sort of the energy thief ninja, it's a way for players to be encouraged to use melee abilities and then restore their energy. So we're going to be playing around with some of those things that sort of, and maybe changing some of the things around Tank Penny will change. But one of the straight upsides that some of the designers will tell you, it's like, well, by the very virtue of the fact that you're consuming ammunition and durability at a greater rate than Tank Penny does in melee, means that you already are at an advantage because your resource consumption are low, and lower than that. So we're sort of like walking between the line of like, well, how much resource reduction effectively does she give you versus straight at effectiveness? And it's something that we'll add to the list and figure out if she's strong enough. But it can't be simply just give her more health because just giving her more health means that shotgun Tank Penny is just automatically better than melee Tank Penny. So we have to create better synergies amongst the class specialization, and that's going to take some time. So that's a really long-winded way of saying we've given a lot of people tons of choice, and there's going to be a bunch of times when players are like optimizing around certain things, and maybe those optimizations are better. But sometimes that's the fun of the game. But eventually, we'll audit any of the stuff that says like, hey, we want Tank Penny to be effective, and then we'll just figure out like, do we think that she is, and if not, then we'll buff her.
And I think part of that is also like understanding that when you have these heroes that the abilities are more gestures and it's more in the realm of how that hero might play, but it's up to you to self-select how you would like to play that hero specifically. And you might find some stuff works better for you, now or then. But it's cases like that where we see players. Oh, that was a little bit of a buzzer beater there. Getting there, it was getting close. Take a little stretch there.
Hey Billy, did we? How did we do the when we have the waves? Sort of like kill. The kill waves.
Yep.
That we have the meter at the top now. Mm-hmm. Does that fill up differently based upon different?
It does. So that's a change from last time as well. The bigger enemies are worth more. So it is actually worthwhile to kill them.
That's the reason I was wondering specifically, because I was like, I think smashers are going to be a better. Like, I'm pretty sure like this is like just focusing on the husks is the right.
It's the hope is it should be like, it shouldn't be a clear winner in every case. That's the hope.
You kind of got to change it up based on the
Well,
engagement.
just that battlefield opportunities should create some noise there, where it's not clearly like I should either shoot small creatures or absolutely large creatures.
Always shoot X or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is a weakness I think we had in the first one, right?
First one, for sure. Yeah.
You lost some of the fun of the like, how do I deal with? There's all these smashers in my face. When you could just kite them all and be like, well, but I killed 10 normal husks, so wave complete.
Right. No. So and it's a little bit more of like if that's the thing you want to do, you want to go aggressively kill those 4 smashers to get the points. Like that may be a strategic choice.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's definitely. And then going back about the hero stuff you're talking about, for example, like I'm excited for like the new shotgun soldier being able to like use that at close range and actually get in there and fight some of those engagements. Like I definitely prefer that more. And right now I've been rocking Jonesy because I'm a big fan of the face paint.
Yeah,
so
Jonesy has some good war.
It's a classic face paint. You gotta love it, folks. But with a different soldier coming in that fits more my play style, like gesturing towards that, which I like the close range. But for me, like I also want to be able to like just to pull out a sledgehammer sometimes.
Yep.
But if I'm like at rifle range, pulling out a sledgehammer doesn't do me anything. Having that shotgun and being able to swap between that definitely like helps me personally. Like when I'm in there and just trying to do soldier things.
Yep.
So that's definitely excited for those new heroes too. The Energy Thief Ninja sounds very interesting.
Yeah.
I know some people will probably pull off some like just some optimal paths.
Yeah,
around.
we'll find out. You know, again, like everything else in the game, we will iterate and see if we've course corrected in too much in either direction. But it is within the realm of the possibility of like, hey, the ninja is a strong melee class, and so we want him to feel good. And like one of his limitations is energy, but if he's doing his class role, he should be able to mitigate some amount of those energy requirements.
For sure. And I got one more question here I pulled out from that thread. We got user Bralf88. So it says, don't think I saw it asked. Will we be getting any improvements to base construction part of the game? And he goes into some specifics. He's kind of inquiring about dismantling, recycling, and then blueprint / pre-building structures.
Yeah, so it's interesting, actually I work backwards, I'll say on this one, is like the blueprint structures has always been something, so I'll define that maybe for people who don't know, which is like, I at least if I'm reading this thread correctly, it's the ability to sort of forecast what you're going to manifest into the game world. So you show up into a world and you're like, hey, I have a death turret I want to build. Here's the group, here, let me show you the group, and then you build that piece. We've actually talked about that quite a bit, about the ability to save and build blueprints ahead of, and I say blueprints since I was showing off what you're going to build to the world. Actually, I think we've talked about that for over the years. So I actually, we classically think that's a really cool idea. It's just, again, the user interface. How do we show it off? How do you select it? How do we save it?
Making sure it feels good.
And then, I mean, so it's a bit more than a bigger of the bread box idea, but definitely I think it's actually super important in the long run. Like as we when we look at Fortnite as a over the next 4+ years, I think we're going to add more of that, because having players have tools to be able to communicate with their team about what their intent is, I think is important. It wasn't on fire, but I think as we play as we evolve more of the game, we're going to want to do stuff. So I think that's actually a really good idea. I don't know where you were on that too in the past, Billy.
Yep, I remember we talked about it. I know in general we try with the building stuff because it's so central to the game too, and we want people to feel like, oh yeah, I can be in combat, I can be not in combat, and I can build easily. We went through a lot of iteration very early on in the game where there were versions of the building that were just so hard to use, right? Like people would be so confused and frustrated, and so I know we're always with that stuff too. Even if it's a good idea, we want to make sure that we have some of those UI concerns figured out, right? Because I would hate to add something that's like, yeah, this is really cool, but it makes the general building experience like way more complicated for people to the point where it's like frustrating. I don't know. I'm not saying that's necessarily true for that feature, but that's a thing that we always try to keep in mind.
And you got to keep those things in mind. Like maybe I'm an experienced player, I'm really good at building, and this is very intuitive for me. But if a new player, I come in and it may be a little bit too overwhelming for me to rock. So taking into account those different perspectives on how people might come into it.
Yeah, because I remember one of my first
Ricochet.
Ooh,
oh boy,
I'm sure that'll be fine.
This is getting spicy.
Yep. One of my first playtests that I was in.
Percentage of range damage. Okay, I don't know if anybody's noticed here, but I have. Oh, I can finally
there you go.
a melee weapon.
You're gonna need it.
It's like I don't have any 2-star melee weapons. Just I normally don't run with those. So.
Oh, I like this.
Oh my gosh,
this is looking clean.
This is.
Nope.
Build up that sawtooth.
These are not going to be super effective, but we will do our best. All right.
I have faith. I believe in you.
You're almost there. You're on wave 9.
Yeah. True fact. True fact.
True fact.
I saw out of the corner of my eye earlier on when we were talking too that you met one of the artillery waves. There was a lot of flying.
The lop. Yeah,
yeah, there was a lot of loppers.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
It's just a raining skull. Oh, it's great. That was well, and that
I did watch you build some of them in. You were walling them in.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
Yeah,
That's bad.
the dynamic building.
Yeah, using the tools.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I get one thing that I can see, like traps being utilized a lot. Zach's utilizing a lot of traps here, and I think that could definitely benefit just at least slowing down some of these like these hordes as they like rush into the base, because it's definitely like I know some of these when they get like those different modifiers can get challenging, like the tank plus it being we have fire enemies on this wave, plus like Ricochet now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And Ricochet is going to return some amount of any range damage that you deal to people. So you kind of have to get in some melee or be careful.
Yeah, and I know that it's get it. Also, like I'm sure with the new weapons coming in. Actually, I think we have an image of the weapons as well. But with those new weapons coming in, that's like another thing to another one of these weapons where you can say, I want this weapon. I'm gonna go get this weapon. It's here for this event, and it kind of gives you that path to get the thing that you might want. Like if you're, you
Just
can.
evil. This is evil. Ricochet with like nothing but a B wave. It's just like I don't even understand right now. Other than this is amazing and evil. So.
Oh no, it's. I'm sure. I'm
man.
sure Billy's
I just had to make the
No,
point.
Billy is cackling in his head right now.
Oh man, it is. It's
All
awesome,
I'm
Billy.
saying is the
This
last
so
time we
good.
ran this, the
This is so
players
good,
were like,
Billy.
man,
No, this is
I wish
great.
it was slightly more random on what got applied. And
Yeah,
now we're
here.
reaping
We're
what
here,
we've
Billy.
sown.
Oh my gosh, this is.
I'm gonna
Sorry,
try-
sorry.
No, it's
Can I
fine.
interrupt
While
you?
we no,
I-
we're in
No,
the,
it's
we're,
good.
no,
This
we're
is
in the
we're here
no,
showing
please
off
interrupt
the
me
cool
because
stuff.
we're in the intense moments. I'm gonna just be trying to pull some questions from chat as I see them pop up because we are getting to some of this intense stuff.
Can I finish your thread? From
Oh, no,
before?
please,
Only
please.
because I don't want to
No,
feel like
please, definitely.
that our somebody's died.
Yeah, I know. I need to get my-
one of the other
oh,
things I
this
think
is
that
a-
was in
I
that
think it's
thread
Defender.
asking about questions is pulling off traps and just generally recycling things that you've built in the game world. So I don't want to shy away too much from that. We've definitely talked about some of those aspects of it. One of the challenges that will happen if we do that is that right now we can kind of be the level of generous we are with the game, with the resources and harvesting rates are at the level that they're at because once you place stuff down, it's just utterly consumed and it goes away.
Right.
Which means that we can give stuff at a decent rate. The weird part is if we slow down that curve, then what ends up happening is that, assuming that we're in even a vaguely balanced state, then effectively we have to reduce the faucet at the inbound of that. So we're sort of like, although I think it's a good idea when you make mistakes and all the other stuff of like, oh, I just put this down and I didn't mean to do that.
Right.
Like having some kind of buyback on a bad intent versus, oh, I can reclaim like all the stuff I just built in this last 20 minutes of the gameplay. That's where it gets more tricky. So I don't know where we're going to land in that in the long run. It's definitely on the list, but I suspect we'll probably focus on figuring out what we can do with when you have a missed intent, like oops, I inadvertently put something wrong down, and then reclaiming something like that quickly versus something of like making complete reclamation of the gameplay modes. It's not that we don't want to do it, and there's a lot of positives to it, but there's also like some negatives to doing it. And early on, we definitely talk. I mean, when we talk early on, I mean like years ago, we sort of went through some of these conversations. And a lot of them was like, man, it didn't feel as good to some of our drop rates. And so I was like, well, at least if they consume, we can make the drop rates feel good and quick.
And you also get too from a gameplay perspective, right? Like if you're really into a game, like if I had a phase where I was like, oh, I got to get every achievement there is in every game. Like I went through that phase,
yeah.
right? And then you get into like, okay, well that means I'm gonna go collect all of these things in the world, even if I'm not necessarily enjoying it, right? And so like, even if it might be useful or fun, you also have to consider the tax of like, do you want it now to be that the optimal way to play is that you literally have to tear down everything you build all of the time, right? And do that to yourself? Because there are definitely going to be people who are like, yeah, I want to be the best I can do. I'm going to do that to myself every time, even if it's not the most fun.
Right.
Yeah. So that's some of the learnings like we had over the long term. We always keep an eye on it, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that we've iterated over time. We'll keep an eye on.
You've been spared of the ricochet on wave 10.
Oh yeah, just double tanks.
Just
again.
double tank, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine.
What was there was one? I want to make sure there was one third part to that question. I think it was the first line.
Yeah. So we had the recycling we touched on.
Yep. The blueprints.
Yeah,
and
the
then
blueprints.
The first one bucket.
Yeah. No. So that was talking about. Let me pull that up here.
New gameplay pieces. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. I think I interpreted that one as like, are we going to add new building pieces to gameplay?
Oh yeah, so yeah, it was the dismantling and then just improvements to the general construction. So it was like the dismantling, the recycling, and then the pre-built structures.
Yeah. So I mean, so yes, obviously we wanted. There's actually some quality of life features like that we will be keeping an eye on. Zach and I have talked about like, hey, what happens in the case of the outpost when when forget about even the resource restoration? What if I just want to wipe out everything in the outpost and start again?
Oh my gosh.
There's players. It's like everything else in our game. You know, there's a percentage of players that want that feature, but it's not the most most utilitarian. Like the new players don't need that,
Right,
You know,
right.
but the power players want it, and so we'll. Whoa! All right, I'm gonna stop talking because this is awesome. So this is Smasher Wave, huh, Billy?
Yeah.
And they have stronger. They have tank on them, right?
Yeah.
Tank smashers. That
they've
seems
come
even
to call.
better.
This is not good.
Yeah.
This is not good.
No, I like this. This is interesting. You have a power group of players. So what's the power group of players going to do?
What is the
make new gun? Let's see. Oh, actually, this guy.
Okay.
Oh man,
All right.
this is the last wave too, though. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
This is
part of this may end up. Oh, but it's 5 minutes. Oh
Yeah,
my
you guys
God.
got to hold the line. You guys got to hold the line.
I'm not sure this is gonna
This is
happen.
just this. It's like the most perfect finale. There's
Yeah.
the smasher finale.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they are
this-
just doing damage.
They
to
are
this.
just there whacking away at that. No, I think that's the other thing. It's just like the quick building aspect of this. Also, like it's not just the engagements that are quick. It's like you're seeing Zach is having to like build around people like as he's moving down the line. Like there's a lot of active play involved in this. So if you haven't started like taking notes, prepping strats, definitely start doing that now because when Horde Bash drops, it's dropping tomorrow. Like when Horde Bash drops tomorrow, you make sure you got to get in there with your team, and I want to see you out there. Like if you have a wave you did not expect to see, tweet that out. Like show us that. We definitely want to see how you guys are dealing with the onslaught of smashers. You know.
Yeah, because the interesting thing with them too on this wave, right, is that sure they're like devastating everything around your base, but they're not necessarily a threat to the primary objective, right? Like they're not going to go end the mode on their own. So you can kind of try to triage, like, okay, yeah, they exposed all this, but now I've got to go focus on these other guys.
Dudes that are
going to
come in and actually finish me off. Yeah.
Like
And-
that guy right
yeah,
there.
that guy trying to sneak in.
He snuck in.
I think that's where we're at.
Yeah, he stuck in.
We're at the point of pragmatism.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're there.
That's the combat
If
efficiency.
we can actually, and to some extent, it's like
Well, yeah, got to use the tools.
Yep, this is
Got
gonna
to
be
use
close.
the tools.
because they're gonna be in there and not out here. So let's see if we can
This is what I actually, Billy, I'll say. This is stuff I like about like when you interspace the kill waves versus the survive waves, because it just creates these weird these problems where the players are like, okay,
Yep.
like what am I going to use my building tools for? Because killing everybody is not my solution right now. It's survival, and then what am I going to do?
So I'm seeing it.
Smashers.
I saw a question in chat.
Yeah, let's answer some chat.
So I saw one that is from.
Oh my God, you guys might not like this out.
No, I don't know if we will.
I believe in you guys.
No. Like this is gonna be tight.
The Shane had asked about I'm limited in some resources, but I only have one weapon or trap that is 4-star, and I know we had touched on this
Nope,
in the
that was it.
touched on some of the stuff in the
No,
past.
No,
with-
no, wait. Oh God, hold on. You got a rocket launcher, though.
We got.
Oh.
We got 2 minutes. We're gonna lose this.
Oh,
That wave is
So
wow.
close.
that was so close, though.
Wow.
That was you guys stuck it out there for through some really
Wow,
That was rough.
that was rough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
that
Well,
was
and
down the line there.
And that gets to what we want to, like we want pacing feedback, all that kind of
No,
stuff.
yeah,
right?
no,
Yep.
and that's
So-
the thing is understanding did we pull that dial? Is the dial too far? But you guys get out there, and if you figure out a strat that trumps the strat that they were trying on stream today,
I
Like-
bet you
Oh,
our
man, we're out
players
of time,
will.
aren't we?
Yeah,
I was
well-
gonna let's roll again.
no,
So
but
you were gonna ask.
no, that was the question about say I have a 4-star trap or weapon, I got and how do I want to get those materials to be able to evolve those other weapons and traps.
Yep.
You
So when
know,
I fail here, what's my do? Let's see. Let's see what we get.
I know.
Let's see what we get. Is it going to be a big pile of ones? I get one of everything. One.
No.
Let's see. Open.
Let's see.
Oh, that's not.
Yeah.
Does not make me unhappy.
Yeah. So
All right.
so again, I want to make sure we
All right.
talk about the evolution of our events
Yes,
again.
yes.
We last time we were and Zach and I were on another stream, and we were like, man, we just lost, and we got a pile of poo. So no one was happy about that for this. So we made sure that when we did this event, that even losses are going to make sure that you get some rewarded for your time, and that was not our intent to be not rewarding for your time. So that was just a sort of, I would consider it a bug and not an intent. So the new ones are better. So that's awesome, actually.
Yeah,
Oh,
we,
man.
we were actually missing tech for the first time we ran this. Like, we didn't want to necessarily do that before, so.
Oh, well, now we get to see our first Scavenger open live.
That guy's pretty cool. He's got a blue head.
What we got here? What do we have the choice of here?
Yeah. Rare soldier, rare ninja. Shock trooper.
All right, here we
another
go.
Oh, what are we talking about?
Oh man, double barrel.
You got the
shotgun
double
for
barrel.
sure.
Yeah, I knew you were going to go that way. All right, epic double barrel, not bad. Controller Harper.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sweet. That's
Is controller Harper? That's
no, that's right.
no,
That's not a.
So, just wrapping up on the
Yeah.
those materials, trying to get the materials to evolve that stuff. Events like this will help with that sort of thing, correct?
Yeah, events will help. I think we've got a new quest. Hey, Zach, before you go too far into that, we have the new quests are in here. Is that true?
Yes, but a lot of these I completed because I was doing testing to try to
what's
try
the
to take
what's
a look
the
at them.
was there a perpetual storm quest? That's
Perpetual
actually what I want
Storms.
to talk
That's the
about.
one you want to talk about?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So
Yep.
we've in this thing we've included the storms are relentless and spreading. Look for purple turbulence on the map. So this is a complete 2 missions storm mission hex, and it upon completion it'll renews itself, and so you'll have a choice of some of the evolution ingredients that you're looking to get a hold of. So that's the way these guys are going to get the Evo things. So we want to continue to make sure that faucet for the players and the things that
Right.
you guys want exist in the game.
See, and you can kind of self-select. Like, I need this specific evolution material, or I'm hunting
Yep.
one specific
Yep.
path. You can go ahead and
Yep,
do that for yourself.
You can pick,
And
pick, and that's.
So does that mean there's storms in this map
That's right.
someplace,
So
right?
yeah, and yeah,
Oh,
storms
yeah,
should
look, here we
continue.
go.
So I don't know if we talked about this overall, but storms continue again back to the beginning of the game. We always intended for storms to be part of Fortnite.
Right.
Once we got the tech last time for Survive the Storm, we will continue to run some smaller scale versions of that.
Right.
And then the players can go farm for ingredients. So you're going to see some storms. Just they're not going to be as prevalent as they were before because that's not part of the event. But this will be part of the sort of overall Fortnite game going forward.
So to touch back on that, just for you folks, if you said I have one 4-star trap or weapon, and I'm struggling to get the materials to kind of get everything up. We are good. We have these quests coming in the Perpetual Storm. With these events, rolling these quests in, you'll be able to get those resources through those paths, and we'll continue to do that more and more into the future as we learn more.
Yep.
This is actually pretty cool because like we specifically have, and by the way, we've been super busy running around crazy, so this is one I'm just looking through some of this stuff honestly for the first time. So like the fact that we're dropping, we've got lightning, we've got Ev ingredients coming off the storm event,
Yep.
as sort of as a base mission reward, as part of the storm reward, and then on top of that, the rest of it's made up on the perpetual. Okay, that's cool. So it's I do two
Yep.
drops of rain, 12 drops of rain,
Yep.
plus another 8, 20
Yep.
for 2 missions. That
Yeah.
feels pretty good.
Yeah,
All right.
so we're just keeping that faucet open and letting people continue to grab stuff and playing the game to get the stuff that they want.
I did like the overlap of him going I'm testing it for the first time, checking this out, and then the pinned quest in the corner is called "What is this thing?" couldn't have been more perfect.
Perfect. What is this thing? Is in fact that.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I
yeah,
think,
up
I think
here.
that was very exciting for me, at least, the Horde the whole, because it was between the waves. I think for me the most exciting part was not knowing what was coming in the next wave, and then just seeing the modifiers pop up, and it's all right, looks like that's how we're gonna do this one.
Yeah, I mean,
Machinist Harper. This is man.
yeah, she's pretty awesome looking.
Yeah. This
Now
is
imagine a world. Well, I want you guys can take a look at this, but I mean, imagine a world where those properties existed on individual creatures rather than an entire wave every now and again in the core game. I'm just saying.
That's an interesting world to imagine.
Right? Imagine that. Billy imagines that regularly. We're going to be able to make use of more of those properties, and then hopefully make them rewarding for dealing with those kind of creatures.
Yeah, and like we said before, we always want to
okay.
make new ones too.
So I guess my bad, guys. I guess I was misunderstanding the question.
Oh.
So what if you only have 3/4-star schematics when you need to do Horde Bash? How can you ever build anything?
That is an absolutely great question. That is the you're going to need some low level schematics initially to go through the early portion of the game. But I don't, based on the testing we did here, the fact that you're OP in those things means that you don't necessarily have to have the bestest of the Valve. So some of the cheap stuff, some of the, that you pretty much some of the trash you can pick up initially, it will enable you guys to sort of play through and then eventually get to the challenge levels that your schematics are on. It's definitely interesting because we always intended for people to have like a variance of schematics of various levels, because some are just easier to craft than others.
Right.
So if you're one of those people that are like, but don't do that, and you absolutely only optimize that, grab a couple of low level guys of relatively cheap. Your power level will basically make you more powerful through most of that stuff, and you can sort of get away through that. And again, since the scavenging packs come with that kind of kind of low level stuff, you'll have access to it, because when you roll the scavenging packs, you'll get them too. So that's what I would do.
Zach, how you feeling, man? How you feeling after that challenge of Horde, dude?
Feeling like I need to go back and try that.
Yeah, that redemption.
Like,
Yeah,
that's where I'm at right now. I'm just like,
You're like, how could I have beaten that?
That's gonna be real hard. Is what the answer to that question.
I have faith.
Because I think
I
when we did the first one,
I'm just like,
I think when we did this last time, you won on the stream, and
Yeah.
that was a personal offense. We had to fix that.
Oh no, Billy was like, that is not happening again. He went back to his desk, wrote a sticky note, not happening again.
Yeah,
that's
but
just how I said 40. Bill was like, sure, go for it.
Yeah, no, he knew as soon as you said 40, he was just like, all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think Horde Bash, I'm definitely excited for it. I think it will, for people who enjoy that faster paced combat, the thinking on your toes, and being able to turn around on that, will definitely enjoy this mode. There was one question from chat. They were asking about the hat, but I think we just
lack of.
Yeah, lack thereof. Yes.
Yeah, I ran here.
This one was coming. Zach was
Yeah. coming
in hot, so to speak.
Yeah, Zach was
on this stream.
sprinting to the stream.
Yeah,
So this is where he's at.
But yeah, as and as always, it's it's awesome to be able to come on here and talk directly to you guys about the stuff we're adding to the game. These streams, they haven't been asking us in the past. There's something we definitely want to do more of going forward, to answer your guys' questions, get out to you the stuff we're doing in the game, especially some very interesting Halloween stuff that will be coming up here soon, shortly. Yeah. It is insane, guys.
Yeah,
I tend to be very animated, but I'm extra animated after seeing what the art team has done, what the game team has done. It's just beautiful stuff coming in this update.
These two, the stuff that everybody's been doing has been amazing. Like,
yes.
Everything from the scavenging to the new Halloween stuff. Like, we got a lot of stuff in store for everybody.
That horizon's looking more and more beautiful, guys.
Yeah. And again, we got a bunch of new people in. Like, I don't know if apparently there are more people playing Fortnite now in its various aspects.
There we go.
Days. So thank you everybody for coming out. Check us out. We got a ton of stuff.
Welcome.
Well, welcome to the boat. Help us row. We're always trying to make things better. Send the feedback about what you want, new questions. Even today's format, we talked explicitly that we wanted to make sure that when we did sort of this version, that we'd be able to talk longer about and more in depth.
Yep.
And then probably those dev updates, we'll keep them short and more to the point. So let us know what you think of the two different formats. We'll probably hybridize them both so we can tackle big stuff and show off gameplay. So right.
And regardless, we always want to hear your questions, hear your feedback. We want to talk to you guys and answer what you're curious about. So as with our dev updates as well, get on Twitter, get on our forums, come reach out to us, drop your questions. I'll be watching. I'll be out here. You see me on Reddit. Shoot me a PM on Reddit, and we'll get into those questions. We'll be doing this. We'll be back here again, guys. Thanks for joining us this week. It was great having you on, guys. Awesome to talk through this. And Horde Bash tomorrow. Be there or log in later and play. There's no squares. It's fine. But yes, thanks, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.